you might not actually own those games you bought. Hollywood is adding to the Lord of the Rings movies because they direly needed it, I guess. And the gaming industry might be breaking under its own weight. And somehow all three of these are connected. All this and more on this episode of The Rift. Hey travelers, welcome back to The Rift. I'm Pete, and this is your breakdown of everything happening in gaming, tabletop fandom, and nerd culture. Today is April 2nd, 2026, and let's get right into it. Today we're starting with our main story because it's just really interesting. According to reports from outlets like Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, Stephen Colbert is attached to help write a new story in the Lord of the Rings universe. Yeah, that's Stephen Colbert. And this isn't just some random side project. This is something that he's expected to move into after The Late Show with Stephen Colbert wraps in May. And this honestly makes a lot of sense, because if there's one person who's been preparing for this moment his entire life, it's him. Colbert's love for Tolkien isn't new. If you've ever seen him on interviews and panels on his show, this guy casually drops deep lore references like it's nothing. He's not just a fan, he's the kind of fan who knows the languages, knows the history, and absolutely knows what the Barrow Downs are without having to Google it. Now, this is important because, as multiple reports are pointing out, this project isn't pulling from the surface level material. It's diving deep into Tolkien lore. Things like the Barrow Downs, areas of Middle-earth that most casual viewers have never even heard of, which means this isn't necessarily built for everyone. It's built for those people who already truly care. At the same time, those same reports make it clear that Warner Brothers is doubling down on The Lord of the Rings as a long-term franchise again. Because if there's one thing that Hollywood loves, it's turning to a universe that's already worked and asking, what else can we squeeze out of this? But zooming out for a second, this isn't just about Lord of the Rings, necessarily. It's a broader shift happening across Hollywood. We're seeing studios move away from broad, entry-level storytelling and into deeper, more specific lore-driven projects. Polygon and comicbook.com have both pointed out this trend, where adaptations are targeting existing fans instead of trying to onboard new ones. It's the if you know era of storytelling. And it makes a lot of sense. Fans are more informed than ever. They want deeper cuts, more detail, and more authenticity. And now studios are starting to meet them where they are. But it's risky, because when you go into this kind of deep lore, you lose the casual audience. And you're not making something for everyone. You're making something for a very specific group of people. And if they love it, it hits hard. But if they don't, you've just spent a massive budget on something most people don't even understand. So, this move with Lord of the Rings and bringing in someone like Colbert, it feels like a test case for where Hollywood might be going next. Okay, before we move on, a quick shout out to some friends of the channel. Our friends over at Solid 10 D&D are wrapping up a 3-year Dungeons & Dragons campaign on April 18th. Over on Twitch. That's 3 years of story all coming to a close, which means if you like long-form actual play with real stakes, this is probably something you'll want to check out. For more details, head over to solid10dnd.com. Now, while Hollywood is digging deeper, gaming might be digging its own grave. According to reporting coming from Bloomberg, AAA games are now costing upward of $300 to $400 million to make, which is less of a budget and more of a controlled detonation. Now, when you combine that with what we talked about last week, studio closures, layoffs, canceled projects, you start to see this fuller picture emerge. Outlets like Kotaku and GameIndustry have been tracking this pattern for months, and bigger budgets mean higher risk. Higher risk means fewer games, and fewer games means when something fails, people lose their jobs. So now every AAA release isn't just a game, it's a high-stakes bet with hundreds of millions of dollars and entire teams' livelihoods riding on the outcome. And that's just not a sustainable model long-term. And this next story is where that hits you directly. According to Reuters, a lawsuit's been filed against Ubisoft over the shutdown of The Crew. Because when Ubisoft turned the servers off, the game just stopped existing, even if you paid for it. Which is a bold move. You bought it, but also no, you didn't. The case, backed by consumer groups, is arguing that players were misled about what they were actually purchasing. So now the question is simple. If you can't access a game you paid for anymore, did you ever actually own it, or were you just leasing the fun? Because this is where everything is heading. Live service games, always-on requirements, digital-only libraries. You're not just buying games, you're paying for access to them. And as more outlets have pointed out, this lawsuit could have wider implications for how digital ownership is handled going forward. Meanwhile, Nintendo is just doing its own thing. According to reports from Gizmodo and VGC, with the upcoming Switch 2, physical games are expected to cost more than digital, which feels backwards because physical media actually costs money to produce, so digital should be cheaper. Then I guess it's the same thing, I don't know. At the same time, reports from VGC and Nintendo Life point to leaks suggesting a new Star Fox and possibly a remake of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So as prices go up, all that nostalgia comes flooding back. Nintendo's basically saying, we know exactly what you're willing to pay for. And honestly, they're probably right. And you know what that means? It is time for our lightning round. Here goes. GameStop quietly closed over 700 stores because apparently the future of gaming doesn't include strip mall carpet and trade-in values that feel more like emotional damage. Warhammer: The Old World is surging at Adepticon. Tabletop is alive, thriving, and honestly more stable than most of the video game industry now. Some developers are catching heat for replacing human translators with AI because nothing says immersive storytelling like dialogue that's like mostly correct. And the VR showcase dropped a bunch of new titles. VR is still coming, it's just taking the long way around. There's also a rumor that PS6 could launch with a price tag of $700, which sounds kind of strange until you realize what everyone's paying for GPUs these days, so yeah. And that's it. Hollywood is betting on hardcore fans. Gaming is getting more expensive and more fragile, and the players are starting to realize that they might not actually own all those things that they paid for. Now, if you want to stay on top of all of this, make sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode of The Rift, and let me know in the comments below what you think, especially about this whole Ubisoft situation. As always, I'm Pete. Stay curious, stay connected, and I'll see you next week on The Rift.